on the whole, it has been a disappointing exercise. I remember as a student in Britain being taught constitutional law by a very distinguished professor who had been one of Churchill's cabinet secretaries. And he illustrated with the example of Ceylon how the ideal transition to democracy and self-government would take place. They had their first municipal elections in 1932 for mayor of Colombo and a council for Colombo. They had 2 universities. They had a thick layer of professionals and administrative officers. They had large sterling balances. So they started off with all the advantages that would ensure progress and prosperity. Of course, I was taught this in 1947 when Ceylon had just got independence. And India, of course, had just gone into turmoil with breakup of Pakistan and India. I have never believed that democracy brings progress. I know it to have brought regression. I watch it year by year, every 2 years when I meet my fellow members of the leaders of the Commonwealth. And it need not have been thus. The British never governed these countries by one man, one vote. It was one British government, one British resident, and his word was law. And he had good district officers whose word was also law for that district. I think regardless of the present missionary zeal of the Americans of democracy and human rights, which has broken up the Soviet Union, it would be misguided to believe that what has worked in very special circumstances amongst European societies and what is barely working in Korea and Taiwan is universally valid. How to establish good government? Good government means a government that considers itself a trustee of the people, whether you're king, chief, or whatever. Not somebody in temporary charge and insecure and therefore out to settle an annuity and a nest egg for yourself, which is what has happened in so many countries. So if you ask me what my thoughts on decolonization are, I think they are grim, because Western political scientists have not lived in these societies, have not understood that what is required is economic progress, development, and the final blossoming of a large educated middle class, which alone can sustain a democracy. When you have 60 to 70% of your population educated, knowing what will work and what will not work, then one man, one vote makes sense. If I give way on Hong Kong to the British, who do not have either military or economic clout to hurt me, then I'm inviting trouble from Chris Patten. From Bill Clinton. Chris Patten can only express his exasperation, but Bill Clinton can turn MFN off and self-government would take place. How the ideal transition to democracy and self-government would take place. How the ideal transition to democracy and self-government would take place. How the ideal transition to democracy and self-government would take place. Who had been one of Churchill's cabinet secretaries. And he illustrated with the example of Ceylon how the ideal transition to democracy and self-government would take place. To democracy and self-government would take place. Transition to democracy and self-government would take place. Transition to democracy and self-government would take place. They had their first municipal elections in 1932 for